What's the point of having a cool voice like Vincent Price if there's no one to talk to? Because this week it's The Last Man on Earth, based on the novel I Am Legend by Richard Matheson.
After a mysterious pandemic turns the world's population into vampires, the human race's sole survivor searches for a cure.
Good things come in threes, and that's why there's been 3 adaptions so far of I Am Legend. This film is the last one that I've seen. I've seen all the others years before. The Will Smith one, it was okay. I can see why people that hadn't read the book or hadn't seen the previous versions fell in love with it and really liked it. Just the fact that a big box office movie took the chance of having virtually no dialogue for the opening 30-40 minutes. By modern studio standards, that's like spending 100 million on an art house film. Was really different, really interesting. But it never really grabbed me, partly because of the goofy looking CGI monsters, but also I'd read the book already, seen Omega Man with its crazy trippy soundtracks, and seeing Charlton Heston drive around with the Black Panther style Manson family type mutants that were running after him, that has been parodied by The Simpsons and other popular culture. They all have elements of the book, but none of them really truly have captured the book. Matheson himself felt that this film, The Last Man on Earth, was truly the most accurate adaptation. And it definitely has that going for it, because in terms of plotting and story, it pretty much lifts everything from the book. There's little things that are different, like the last name of the main character is a bit different, but it's all kind of superficial things, more or less beat for beat. It is a pretty honest adaptation. The author himself actually worked on the script, and he was so dissatisfied with the final product, he asked his credit to be removed. He thought it was a pretty amateur production. He didn't like the directors, 2 guys who kind of hadn't done much else. I looked up one of their IMDb's, and his only other film I could see was called The Amorous Virgin. He loved Vincent Price, great classic actor of so many Hammer horror movies and horror classics, but just didn't feel it was the right casting. You could see his point, but I think it was hammered home by the fact that Fritz Lang, right up until just before production would start, was attached to direct. You're talking about the guy that made Metropolis, M. This guy was a visionary. You think of like those scenes in Metropolis where all those geezers shuffling off to their commute at work, and just the visual style of him, and you take that and you try and transport it into this world of an apocalypse where there's thousands of millions of vampires running through this city and all over the earth, and one man trying to survive, and think what he could have done with it. It could have been something really special. So I'd be as upset as he was. One of the greatest directors of his day got removed from the project, and these 2, pretty amateur directors replaced him. But at the same time, I don't know, something about this film did kind of charm me a little. I think it's because it's such an odd film. I sometimes think of World War I as the meeting between classic warfare and modern warfare. You had cavalry charges running up against machine gun fire and tanks rolling onto the battlefield. It was a mismatch. And that's what this film feels like. You've got real classic horror elements. Vincent Price is starring. The depiction of vampires, they're scared of mirrors. They can't come out in daylight. You kill them with the classic vintage depiction of a wooden stake through the heart. But then you have these really modern horror elements. It's pretty much the first post-apocalyptic zombie film, really. These are vampires, but they're basically zombies. And, the post-apocalyptic genre would come to dominate horror and sci-fi films in the modern era. It's interesting because I saw the vampires. They were shuffling about, and I was like, other than speaking, that's a zombie.
Morgan, come out! Come out!
And I had to look up the year and saw that it was 4 years before Night of the Living Dead, and Romero pointed to this as one of the big influences of that film, which is interesting as well, because William Matheson, the writer, actually pointed to Night of the Living Dead and said, in spirit of what he was going for in the novel, the atmosphere he was trying to capture, he felt that was the true unofficial adaptation of his book.
What was really playing on my mind, I've seen all 3, and I was kind of debating which one I thought was best. And I totally agree with you. I think I Am Legend is the weakest. I like Will Smith, but I thought it's just a case of let's put Will Smith in this again. So I was like, fuck this. Omega Man, I thought was second best. Charlton Heston does a good job. And when I saw Vincent Price in this, I was thinking, if this is going to be post-apocalyptic and you got this like thin wisp of a man with like a moustache, how's this going to work? You said Richard Matheson didn't want to cast him, but I thought he was great in this. He's got a bombastic character. His voice is a trademark within itself. I remember some episode of The Simpsons where he's in it and I'm like, who is this weird guy? I like the whole spin of it that they were vampires. Like, as you said straight away, when he was messing about with garlic, I was like, it must be vampires.
I need more mirrors. And this garlic's lost its pungency.
The pacing as well, there was a lot of action in this, like all the time, where he's like sharp in the States, and he's got the calendars to keep him where he's at, and he's got the map of the city, and it starts off with him like, I've cleared this area and it's been 3 years I've been here by myself, but I've only killed 11 of them, so my life's goal is to try and kill them all. And I was like, this is going to be great. So I like this one the most, I must say.
The film opens and you've got these goofy credits, pretty clunkily done. Vincent Price is knocking about his daily sort of routine. This really generic musical score kicks in. And from the get-go, I'm like, okay, so this is not the Charlton Heston psychedelic tunes playing out as he's going around with the mutants acting all groovy. This is a very different film. It feels like a much more old school sort of classic film. More of a 50s film, definitely, than a 60s film. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay. And then Vincent Price's narration kicks in. And I was like, ah. Oh.
December 1965. Is that all it has been since I inherited the world? Only 3 years. Seems like 100 million.
People go on about Morgan Freeman, obviously, in the modern era, but fuck off, mate. Vincent Price. There's a reason why Michael Jackson pulled him in to do the Thriller narration before the music kicks off. But after a few seconds, that wore off, because it's not just the voice. The reason Thriller was so amazing is because it had this poetic, wonderful poem, essentially, he was reciting. In this, the narration is pretty dull. It made me think about the different ways the different adaptions approached the fact that your solo character, it's Last Man on Earth, there's no one for him to talk to. The Omega Man, you had Charlton Heston, he would just ramble to himself a lot, and it would kind of work because he would often find himself seeing a mannequin in the shop and he'd chat to them. Or back at the house, he had his suit of armor buddy that he'd pretend to play chess with. And he always had someone to kind of talk back and forth to and reveal his thoughts. And because it was more of a conversation rather than straight narrative, you were reading things in between the lines. He wasn't just saying exactly how he felt. Will Smith, it went for the approach of you just don't hear him talk for large periods, but occasionally he has his recording for his notes, but some of his own feelings comes out in that. He also has his dog from the get-go that he can talk at. So you have these different approaches. And really, The Last Man on Earth went for the least creative or interesting approach of just straight narration. And it's bland narration. Like, some of the time there's a bit of poetry thrown in there, but a lot of the time it's just kind of like, oh, and remember, you must be home before dark. Oh, because that's when they come out.
There was a time when eating was pleasurable. Now it bores me. Just fuel for survival. I'll settle for coffee and orange juice this morning.
He's just laying out the rules of the world in the most straightforward way possible. And it goes over moments where they could just use really simple visual storytelling. He sees the sun setting, so he jumps in his car and drives home in a rush. But no, they have to narrate over that at the same time and explain it to you. It started getting on my nerves, especially when he's knocking about his house in the beginning and he throws a tin of beans and he's like, oh, I have to go out and replace the garlic. But then the moment he steps out into the world and he's driving around and, there's bodies littered everywhere and you're seeing him pull together bodies and throw them into that giant pit. and setting him ablaze to get rid of him. And I was like, this is pretty fucking cool. Like the visual of it was interesting. Like I liked it. And, you know, you're seeing him stalk around and invade the homes of unsuspecting vampires that are just trying to chill during the day because they're getting some shut eye and killing them with a stake. And I was like, do you know what? Oh, okay, now I'm in. I enjoy this now. I'm like, I can get into this. You know, spoilers towards the end, but there's been so many adaptations of this film, and it is from 1964, so you should know by now. But the whole concept and the reason for the original novel's title was the fact that he is the monster to them. He is this one singular being that physiology is completely different to them and stalks them at their night, essentially, and kills them. And I thought it was quite good because they framed these moments like he is a serial killer killing the unsuspecting woman who asked for help and a guy who's kind of defenseless. So from that point, I started getting into it. But I got to be honest, I actually kind of disagree with you. I really didn't like Vincent Price in this, and I love Vincent Price. Usually these films charm me, but something about the clunkiness, and it felt like a modern film wearing the clothes of a classic film, and it just didn't meld together right for me.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Every art form or, you know, music, movies is subjective to each person. You know, I might like this one thing and you'll be like, didn't really tick the boxes for me. But to tell the truth, yeah, I agree with you about the narration. It's kind of like the different cuts of Blade Runner. Harrison Ford hated the ones with the really monotone voiceovers, like was really against it. But I resonated with Vincent Price's character straight away when the narration started. It's like that Mac DeMarco lyric, always feeling tired, smiling when required. When he wakes up in the morning and his alarm goes off and he's like, oh, another day. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And it just resonated with me. The mundaneness of everything. Oh, here we go again. And we're not even the last people on earth. We see people all the time and it's hard enough. Like sometimes I wish I was.
Do you know what? That's actually a great angle. I didn't okay, I can get that.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And to go back to the I Am Legend bit, I found it really cool how he is the monster. It gave me vibes of why I always thought Blade was a bad motherfucker, like Wesley Snipes. All the vampires are together. There's this guy, Daywalker, and he just goes around in the day wiping us all out. That is a bad motherfucker. I struggle with the fact of these vampires running at him and he's going around staking him. It looks like a strong wind would knock him over, and it's like, could he really be doing all this stuff? Do you know what I mean?
But do you know what? I 100% agree with you. He's got like that head lurched forward thing that old people get. He's wearing like something your granddad would wear when you go visit him on a Sunday. And he just feels like this doddering old man who's sort of like running around, and he kind of looks like he'd have old person's breath smell. And I was just like, I'm just not feeling this guy in this setting, in this film. But interestingly, he wasn't a method actor, definitely, but he was a big believer in selling the physicality of moments. And when he's carrying dead corpses and loading them into his van to throw into the big mass grave, he said, dummies never look real. Other than the fact when I'm obviously throwing them into the actual mass grave, I want to be carrying real live people who are made up in makeup to look dead. A whole human carrying around is heavy. There's a reason why even firemen who are big, strong guys are taught the fireman carry, because it's the easiest way to carry a person with the least pressure on you. But Vincent Price was lobbing those people about, but also assumedly doing it for several takes all day in production. So he must have been a lot fitter and stronger than he looked. And also, he lived for another 30, 40 years. You know, geezers in that day and age just looked way older, way younger. But that makes it even more perilous, I guess, because he's an old geezer. He's not some macho guy. He's not Will Smith doing pull-ups next to his Alsatian. You know, he's an old guy trying to deal with an entire world's population worth of vampires.
What I did like about this film, it was intercut with the origins of the virus. He was the scientist and going to work, and one of them saying, it's not bad, like nothing's going to happen, we'll sort this out.
Well, it was actually him saying that.
Yeah.
And that was one choice I didn't like. To be fair, I can't remember if it's like that in the novel, but I didn't like the fact that he's the guy who's doubting it. And Ben, who eventually becomes the kind of lead vampire that terrorizes him every night, is the guy beating the drum.
And why are they burning the bodies? Why don't they bury them?
Because it's the best known way to control the contagion, to keep the germ from spreading.
That's what we've always believed, at any rate.
You'd prefer us to believe in vampires?
If they exist, yes.
Because it's that thing where I have to then be against Vincent Price. Like that classic thing I always say, I hate when they make a child character completely mess something up so they have to be saved. Part of me is just always like, well, fuck the kid then. Like, I don't like the kid because he fucked things up. Same thing here where Vincent Price is wrong and he's being the guy who's arrogantly dismissing it. What we know is going to happen. So I was kind of nearly rooting against him, and it was another nail in the coffin of me not liking his character in this film.
To be fair, to put it in Vincent Price's shoes, he's like a decorated scientist, or like, you know, they're the ones in the lab working on it, and you've done all this training. It's kind of like the vaccinations of COVID, like some random bloke that's a cleaner or some like English geezer will be like, don't get the vaccine. It's like, and you're like, from you? Like, do you know what I mean?
It's like that, but we've transported forward in time as the audience, and we know Dumb Dave is right. So we're going to be on Dumb Dave's side. It's like UFOs.
Yeah.
No scientist will be like, yeah, of course there's no aliens in the universe. But the moment you start being like, UFOs coming to Earth, even if they don't think it's impossible, they'll probably back off because they're just like, there's just associations that won't be good for my career here.
You got to think of it as vampires are legendary mythological creatures. It'll be like me going out and saying I've seen a unicorn. They're like, they don't exist, and he's got that in his mindset. Do you know what I mean?
Or if you're a religious watcher of the show, then the mythical Enfield Golf Course Cougar,
yes,
which I've witnessed.
which is real, by the way.
Real. I've seen it myself.
You know, we want to know why he is resistant to this virus, and all he can come up with is he was in Panama and got bitten by a bat, and it was like, okay.
My theory is that the bat had previously acquired the vampire germ. By the time it entered my blood, it had been strained and weakened by the bat system. As a result, I have immunity. Well, it's only a guess, but it's all I have to go on.
One thing I did like about that was the fact that these films generally never give you all the answers, and the fact that this film kind of did try and give you a reason for everything, including why is he immune, because you just assume some people are immune to anything. You don't really need a reason, but I like the fact that it tried to come up with an actual reason for why he had this immunity. I really like the flashback scene as well, because firstly he finally had someone else to talk to, but also you're seeing his family setting. The wife is smoking hot, but a pretty nothing character. You know, she's just the typical doting wife, clueless and directionless without a husband. The daughter, you know, she's there as his daughter. She has no real personality or dialogue in particular, but it jumps forward to when the virus has taken hold. And it was funny as well, because I guess I got to remember this is pretty much the first there's a virus, there's zombies, post-apocalyptic film. So they didn't really have like the thousands of films to steal ideas from. But he walks in and his daughter, and she's like under this big veil, and she looks like she's already dying. And I was like, the daughter's dying. And he goes to his wife's bedroom and she's dying. And she's like, oh, I'm sick. But then he's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't send her to school today. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
that was weird.
Like, I assumed like society was already falling apart. And then it skips forward a bit again, and you're seeing, you know, people aren't showing up to the lab and it's all kind of falling apart. The daughter's pretty much at death's door, and he's saying, don't call a doctor because they'll if you report it, they'll take her away and she'll be incinerated and killed. And the wife at this point, you know, I looked up her IMDb, the actress didn't really ever do anything else of note, but you know, she actually really sold this moment for me, because in a film that has over the top theatrical acting, I believed she was distraught and sick and tired and crying because her daughter's so ill and doesn't know what to do. But again, Vincent Price is just kind of like, you know, our daughter's dying, but don't call a doctor because they'll incinerate her. I have to go to the lab now. And he's just like this weird, emotionless thing. And it's again why he's not good casting in this. He doesn't work.
If you call a doctor, he'll report it. Do you want that?
Mommy, please help me. Mommy, help me.
How can you be so sure she...
Blindness is one of the symptoms.
I feel like the blame maybe shouldn't be put on Vincent Price, though, because we know how good an actor he is.
100% agree.
I feel like the blame should be either put on the script writer for writing like a weak-ass script. And it's blatantly obvious what you said earlier, that this director is a bit clueless of how to direct a star on the level of Vincent Price. Like, you've got so much to work with and mould there. And he just turned Vincent Price, one of the most bombastic and charismatic stars ever, into like a boring piece of wood.
Yeah.
So that's got to be on the director. Like,
100% agree. It is one of the things. That's why I keep saying in this film. I love Vincent Price. Who doesn't?
Yeah, I agree.
Tried to stop them. They took her.
Did this truck just come in from Market Street? Said, get out! I want my daughter.
Mister, a lot of daughters are in there, including my own.
Yeah, so we skip forward, his wife does call the doctor and the daughter's been taken away, so he drives after the truck to the mass grave that he later uses for the vampires. And some of the dialogue exchanges really are awful. Where he says to some guy, my daughter's in there.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, hey, buddy, there's a lot of daughters in there, including my own.
That's silly.
And
he wasn't even sad. He was like happy.
He's just kind of like, get a hold of yourself and walks off. Yeah. And then his wife dies and he has to go bury her. And, there's that moment where, again, it could have been good. It could have been creepy. Vincent Price is sitting at home and he starts hearing whispers of his wife saying, let me in. But they don't have any good sound design. So it's audibly, to our ears, it's just clearly coming from right next to him.
Who's there?
They can't technically sell the fact that it's supposed to be coming through the door faintly. And he goes over and he opens the door and she wanders in like, and he's like, and it goes out the flashback.
Robert.
Still kind of was effective, but it just like the directors knew what they wanted to do, I think, but they just didn't have the ability to do it.
Do you know what makes me laugh about all these scenarios is the key to surviving this pandemic is just closing the door.
Yeah.
Because none of them can get through simple doors or like windows.
It's
or
like
whatever.
science.
Like, it's me and you in a house and there's like one running around and I go to Declan, did you leave the fucking door open because you let one of them in?
And I think even then you could just like put a chair in front of it and it'd be like for a few hours like,
it'd be like Sideshow Bob when he keeps stepping on rakes.
No, you're totally right though, because we come out of the flashback back to like it's another night attack scene. This is one point where I actually just started to laugh at the film because you had Ben, his main vampire adversary, outside sort of slapping his hand against the door going, Morgan, come out, we want to kill you, Morgan.
Morgan! We're going to kill you, Morgan! Morgan! You here?
Well, if I come outside, are you going to kill me? And he's like, yeah. And he was like, well, I'll just stay in here then.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
He seems to have set up all these contraptions inside his house. Like, he's got garlic hanging above it. He opens the door and there's a contraption of wires, like Wallace and Gromit, like all over the house he has to duck under. But yet he's spent all his time doing that and sharpening stakes, which I get. But why did you bother doing all that? Because they can't even get in.
Yeah.
It's just a waste of your time.
It's so easy to kill it. It's the easiest apocalypse ever.
And it's like, why wouldn't, like, obviously they discover it actually is vampires. I don't know what the lore of vampires is. Presumably they're in old texts where vampires would come and like take peasants from Romanian villages or whatever they used to do. You know, Bram Stoker's Dracula was written in like 1800, so everyone knows about it. And it's like, surely you could have done better. They're all outside your house and they're trying to get you for how long? Like, you know they're allergic to lights. Like, is there some sort of way, like Blade, where they set up artificial, powerful lights that make them run away? Or you could do a lot better than he's done.
Alive. It's alive.
Don't run away!
Really?
So we jump forward to the whole dog sequence. In the book, he spends weeks trying to earn this dog's trust because obviously the dog is just as traumatized as he is. In this, the dog just kind of shows up at his door. He's like, oh, and he's like, oh, come in. And it was cracking up because there was this long scene where he's just sort of going, everything's going to be okay now to the dog. You can see on the dog's face, he's looking at him like, this guy is creeping me out, man. Like, something about Vincent Price's delivery is just not right in this film. It just doesn't feel right in this setting, and it's just creepy.
We're going to have lots of happy times together. You'll see, everything's going to be fine.
And then the dog dies. You know, the whole kind of sequence doesn't really have the punch that it has in the book emotionally. And then there's just some woman walking towards him straight away as the dog dies. And then he's chasing her, and it's just, I really started to disengage with the film at this point and started to just enjoy it in a laughing at it sort of way.
I'm not going to hurt you. Wait. I couldn't be out here in the daylight if I was one of them. You know that they can't come out until sundown.
I'd be fucking fuming, yeah, if I had nothing and I was in this life or death situation. And then, you know, Will Smith's dog is like fucking Alsatian. What a sick dog to have. It's an attack dog, it can help me. And then he gets a fucking poodle. And I'm like, what's the point of that? That's the most pathetic dog breed you can have. When it dies, I didn't give a shit because there was no like work to build up their relationship. There was none of them going around like it is with Will Smith and getting closer to the dog. It's just like, here it is, now it's dead.
I think the dog gave up because once it finally found Vincent Price.
Yeah.
I saw my husband killed, torn to pieces right in front of our house. I've been wandering ever since, hiding at night, not eating more than scraps, sick with mourning, sick with fear.
So he meets this woman and he takes her home and they kind of arguing back and forth. And it eventually gets revealed that she is also a vampire, but she's a group of vampires that have learned how to inhibit their animalistic primal monster mentality side that the ghoulish zombie-like vampires outside have. And they're essentially people, but with all the benefits of vampires, you know, as well as some of the drawbacks, but they can suppress it with this weird little injection they have.
You are one of them.
I was. And without that injection, I'll be one again.
And to me, the vampires still seem alive because his colleague remembers his name and is literally like saying, come outside. So instead of killing them all, shouldn't they have tried to give them the injections to try and save them?
I mean, I think that partly will be the plan, but I get the feeling that maybe some were too far gone. I don't know if it brings you back straight away.
Why are you here?
To find out if you know any more than we do. You know far less. We're alive. Infected, yes, but alive. We're going to reorganize society. Do away with all those wretched creatures who are neither alive nor dead.
There's also the fact that he injects her with his own blood and it seems to completely cure her, more or less revive her back to being human, not even scared of mirrors or garlic, which naturally is she's trying to communicate to her other kind, but it's all a bit of a mad dash. You know, they've shown up to kill him, so she can't really get in the way. He just doesn't seem to give a shit. He's like, we'll go tomorrow, don't worry. And she's like being like, no, I'm telling you, I've met you, I feel bad for you now, like I don't want you to die. You're not the monster that we have these legends of now that I've met you, so they're gonna come and kill you tonight. And he's like, we'll go tomorrow, don't worry. Just doesn't care. So her team all shows up. They look like a SWAT team. They start like beating the shit out of all the ghoulish zombie vampires outside.
Wait! You don't understand, wait!
He's going around with a little pistol, just killing them every so often. They've got actually assault rifles and bombs. And he's got these weird smoke bombs that look like the things clowns throw up and catch. And then they're just running through it. I don't know if it's gas or smoke.
They chase him down into a church. I think it's the church where his wife is buried. And they have the final big showdown where they shoot a harpoon into his chest. And he falls dying as they say, the legend is over.
You're freaks. I'm a man. The last man.
I mean, he starts a monologue of, I am human, I am the real person. But at the same time, these lot are preaching that he's the bad person because he's killed people that are kind of still alive, but of course he didn't know, and he dies, and then she walks off and goes, we're safe now, and it was just an anticlimax, really.
So do you recommend Last Man on Earth?
Right, what I'll say about this, I don't know if our American viewers or whoever will know about Marmite, but the slogan is you either love it or you hate it. Some people love it, some people think it's absolutely rank. I personally liked it, I personally enjoyed it, but I can see your take on it, Declan, and why you might not like it. So my opinion is give it a go. You'll never know until you try, but it's very in the middle. I personally would, others wouldn't.
This shows that a faithful adaptation does not equal a good movie necessarily. You know, everything about it is beat for beat more or less faithful, but even the author himself said that it didn't capture the spirit of the novel. He has the big speech at the end about now he is the legend, he is the monster, he is the creature, you know, blah blah blah. But I didn't feel like the way I felt when I finished the book. That moment really hit me in the book. It doesn't in this. This film just didn't work for a number of reasons. I did enjoy watching it because I'm a film nerd. I'm fascinated by anything. Like I said, it was like a weird clash between old horror and modern horror. So there's a lot I could get out of it, but that's only as a super film fan. I can't recommend it to the average person. You know, the difference between it and Omega Man, which I loved, could be summed up by the choice of cars. You have Charlton Heston being like, let me get a Dodge Challenger, and when that dies on me, I'm just going to walk in and get a fucking Cadillac or whatever car he gets. You know, he's going for these cool, fun muscle cars and playing psychedelic tunes up to 11 as he drives through the streets. Whereas Vincent Price is like, oh, I could get the convertible, but I better go for the reliable station wagon, and drives off in that. And that is it. You know, this film, I get it's supposed to be bleak, but, you know, there's just no fun in it. There's no entertainment in it. So I can't recommend it. So that is a rare no from the Filmy Filmic Film Show.